Okay, this is really a very special day. This is the time as we are talking now, as we are speaking, the advisory board for vaccines are meeting to evaluate the data, and hopefully they give the emergency authorization use for this first vaccine. Actually, the data I'm going to present to you was published this morning in the New England Journal of Medicine, which is the premier medical journal in the whole world. And I was able to go over the data, although I prepared those slides before the data, but this is from press releases and other meetings, and I looked at the data, it looks the same. There really is different in the article from what I'm presenting. The accompanying the article, they published actually the whole protocol of 370 pages. Therefore, I'm so glad that we are starting this process to be very transparent. We need to be very, very transparent. You guys, you are pioneers in this. Many of you have had cancer and cancer survivals and participated, being heroes, participated in the clinical trials. You know what it takes to have a clinical trial. You know how it is done and how rigid the criteria are. Therefore, I don't really need to sell clinical research to this group of people because you believe in it. You are heroes that every day you take medications. Maybe it doesn't get the notoriety of a vaccine, and you take these drugs shortly after approved. Many of you have taken these drugs before approved. I have given drugs 10 years before they were approved as part of the research. And again, therefore, research is not foreign to you. I mean, look, these slides, actually, when I started looking at this, I put these slides, they are a lot medical, and it's not that you don't understand all of that, but the reason why I'm gonna present them to you, not that you have a quiz at the end of this, but to show you that everything I'm gonna tell you, there is science behind it. When I tell you something that's not 100% sure, I will let you know. I will have a disclaimer telling you, look, this is my educated gut feeling. But most of what I'm gonna tell you now, it's science. I'm showing this to prove to you the science. I don't expect you to know everything on these slides, and I did that on purpose. Let's look at this cell. The cell is the unit of which God created us. We are made out of billions and billions of cells. If you look at the cartoon on the right, you have that circle in blue, that's called the nucleus. And then the structure outside it, it's called the cytoplasm, like light pinkish. For every cell has a nucleus. The nucleus is the engine of the cell. The cytoplasm is where stuff also happens. You create a protein, you create a stuff. The nucleus is the blueprint of who we are. How tall are we going to be? What's the color of our eyes? What's the color of our hair? What genes we have or we don't have, what mutations we have or we don't have, what cancer or other diseases we are susceptible to. This is what the nucleus has. It's DNA. For the DNA to be transmitted, it has to be transcribed, something called transcription, and it's a copy of the DNA. It's like you have a blueprint and then you make a copy of it and give it to the, the architect or the contractor to build you the building. You cannot build a building without some blueprint. So the DNA is the blueprint, and then in the nucleus, something called the transcription to the left of the slide, and then it creates messenger RNA. RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. I know you know all of this. M is messenger because there are 3 types of RNA. The RNA is made and then it gets to the cytoplasm. It's really important to know that all our mRNAs, messenger ribonucleic acids, are not in the nucleus. It is in the cytoplasm outside the blue circle. And then now the mRNA, it dictates what happens by creating proteins. It's like a translation. Therefore, you transcribe DNA, you make mRNA, you translate now mRNA into protein. The vaccines we are going to talk about, they are mRNA. This is really important to know. when we inject this vaccine, it does not go into the nucleus, period. The DNA, the blueprint, the genetic machinery of the cell is not interfered with in any way, shape, or form. The half-life of mRNA, how long it takes for it to disappear, half of it is in terms of minutes. Therefore, the mRNA is there. You either make a protein or it disappears. Therefore, it gets into the cell, and I'm not going to go into all the mechanism, and it's very quickly translated into protein. If I look at the DNA, mRNA, the protein, and the transcription translation, that's all what I wanted to know. But the most important thing is that mRNA is out the cell. Now, when we get an infection, there are two ways our body fights the infection. First, the body recognizes it as foreign, or a fancy word, if foreign stuff is antigen. Antigen, the body said, this stuff doesn't belong here. I know that. I really need to fight it. And there are two ways by which you can fight foreign body, or let's call it an antigen. An antigen can be a cancer, can be a virus, can be bacteria. One thing is the lymphocytes are the immune system. You know, some people tell me, how do I measure my immune system? It's not that easy, but we'll talk about it. The B cells, these are very quick. The B cells, the B lymphocyte recognizes the antigen, and then it produces something against it. And that's something called antibody. Antibody means a molecule against the antigen. It's an antibody against the antigen. In neutralizing in terms of virus, because the antibody neutralizes the virus. It puts it to death. That's it. It kills it. This is now actually called the humoral immunity. Now, you tell me, okay, you created these antibodies. How long did they last in our body? They actually don't last for lifetime. Then how do you develop immunity to this infection or foreign material? Because you create what we call memory cells. The system, our body, dedicate a group of B lymphocytes and tell them it's like an army with different divisions. That tell them these are few million of you guys. You need to remember, if this body gets exposed to the antigen, you need to recognize it very quickly and destroy it. So therefore, it's not we just produce the antibody. We have a unit of our immune system army dedicated to fight it if we get exposed to it again, if it is the same thing, if it is the same antigen. Now, if we get exposed to it, but it's different, the memory cells is like, wait a minute, we don't recognize this. You need to start from the beginning. Another way to kill stuff that's foreign to our body is what we call cell-mediated. Some infections or certain things, the body cannot really produce an antidote or antibody to it. What happens actually, there are the T lymphocytes. The T lymphocytes, like a huge army with like with sophisticated armory, that it goes there and it engulfs the antigen, destroys it completely by containing it, because it's too big for an antibody to destroy it. It's like a tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is the best evidence, is the best way how the body gets rid of it. It induces cell-mediated immunity. You really prefer, when you are exposed to something, to have both, to have the humoral immunity with antibodies and to have the cell-mediated immunity. That will be really awesome. Now look, you heard about herd immunity, population immunity. This is really a fancy word saying, for people for a population to become immune to an infection, enough of the people have to be immune to it. Because how do viruses spread? Viruses, it try to jump from one person to the other. Now, if enough people are immune, like 10 people are immune, 2 are not, and there is an infection, the virus doesn't find enough people to infect, because 10 people are immune and 2, it's not easy for that virus to jump from one person to the other. The problem with this COVID-19, it is so contagious and people are getting together and many people don't have immunity, therefore the spread is so fast. For us to have herd immunity, it depends on the infection and how effective the vaccine is. You need 60 to 80% of people immune. There are 2 ways to get immunity, either with a vaccine or you let the virus take over, the infection take over. You remember that's what happened in Sweden and it didn't work. This is not our policy in the United States. I don't really think our policy has ever been to get the infection to induce immunity, or else millions of Americans will die. Therefore, you don't have to immunize everybody. You don't have to have everybody immune, but you have to have enough so that the virus have difficult way jumping from one way to the other. Let me tell you, with this virus, the whole world get to fight it. I mean, these are some of the organizations that not only in the United States, but we had here the Operation Warp Speed. It's an amazing endeavor with the NIH, but the NIH also did studies, but on the right, the global. Therefore, why do we have a vaccine in 10 months? Believe me, nobody cut corners. Nobody cut corners. The whole world put all their efforts to have this vaccine. You know, even at Memorial, we open a study, it takes us 4 to 6 months. With the COVID-19, we opened 2 studies. You know how long it took? 2 days. We never cut any corners because we brought everybody and we told them, you know, some committees meet every 2 months, every 3 months. No, guys, you need to all now and sit together. And instead of 6 months, it's 2 days. We never cut corners, but that's what happens during a pandemic. Now, this is some of the investment. I mean, of course, we, the Americans, have invested the most. The light blue is the amount of money the government gave to the company and actually made the whole vaccine what's called business risk free. What I'm saying is we told 2, 4, 6, 7 companies, we are going to give you $2-3 billion and we don't really care whether your vaccine works or not. We want you to produce enough of it just in case it works so that we can use it immediately. And if you look at the amount of money compared to what we are losing, these are pennies. I mean, 7, 8, 10 billions. I mean, again, this is really was an investment worth having. Now, you know, some people say we don't have enough of the vaccine. Pfizer, look at Pfizer and Moderna. I will talk about Moderna. It's the other company that has the mRNA. But we actually bet more money on Sanofi vaccine. J&J, Johnson & Johnson, hopefully this comes in January. The one after Moderna, AstraZeneca, let me tell you, this vaccine should have been first, but there was a screw up in how they conducted this study with some doctors not giving the right dose. There was nothing wrong with the study, guys. There was nothing. I read the whole study. There was, you know, there were 3,000 patients in a country. The doctors gave half the dose rather than the dose. I think the company wasn't very, very transparent from like minute 1. And within hours, doctors realized there is something not right here, guys. And then they went back and they corrected themselves. You cannot. We need to be transparent. But again, the reason why we had this vaccine very quickly because of the money we invested. This is how long it was supposed to take. And I'm not putting this to scare you. If you look at the top 2, the Oxford AstraZeneca, this is the one I was talking about. It actually started first, but in one of these countries, unfortunately, they are not used to clinical trials. And they discovered instead of giving the full dose of the vaccine, they gave half the dose to 3,000 patients. And it really was weird that those who took half a dose and then full dose did better than those who took full dose, the two injections. It doesn't make sense. That's why they are going to go back and doing the study. But I put these 2 arrows now on the Pfizer and Moderna. Let me tell you about the Pfizer. It's actually not a Pfizer vaccine. It's not. It's actually the Pfizer, the small company in Germany that was established by, actually, it happens to be a Turkish couple, brilliant people who 15 years ago invented this mRNA to create vaccines. They have worked on it for 15 years. There are hundreds and hundreds of publications, and they sold part of their rights to Moderna, and they kept on working. And actually, Pfizer partnered with them because they are a very small company that they don't have the resources to do the study. But the technology of mRNA in vaccine is all.
Yeah, I tried to listen to this
have vaccines
webinar,
against
but it's
viruses, but we never had
the
to
guy
use
is his name's
now,
Dr.
you know,
Hussein, and
vaccine is
I don't
really
know what
an
he's
easy
talking
thing
about.
to
He's talking
envision.
about the vaccine platform refresher, DNA based, RNA based, inactivated.
Whoever is talking, can we all put
We can't hear you, doctor. Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
What happened? I don't know. Can you
There
hear?
you go. You're back on.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I mean, stop me, please.
No, I'm sorry. We
Go
just
back.
had someone come in, so I just and was speaking, so I muted everyone, and I had to. You could just.
Okay. Okay. What's a vaccine? It's not really very complicated. We need to introduce part of the virus directly or indirectly into the body so that the body will mount an immune response. You remember this humoral antibody antidote or the cell mediated. Now, most of the vaccines we have, they are actually inactivated vaccines. What it means that you either take the whole virus and inactivate it, or you take part of it, inactivate, and then you inject it. It will not cause the infection, but the body will recognize it, create an antibody so that when you are exposed to the virus, you will destroy it. Now, the RNA viruses is what we are talking about today, and the two companies that are going for in front of the FDA this week and next week are RNA viruses. Again, the RNA, the antibody is not against the RNA. The antibody is against the protein when mRNA is translated. You remember, mRNA has to be translated into a protein, and then as if you are giving the protein of the virus. But this is really even better because it's synthetic, it is chemically made, there is no part of the virus you are going to be exposed to. Therefore, if you ask me, can you develop coronavirus after an mRNA vaccine? I tell you with certainty, no way. Why am I saying that? Well, I'm not giving you any part of it. Therefore, how can you have the infection without it? Now, there are some companies like the AstraZeneca and Johnson & Johnson. They are actually what we call viral vector vaccine. It's a gene of the virus attached to an innocent gene like adenovirus, and we inject it in you. You may have some symptoms because we are actually giving you a little bit of an adenovirus that doesn't really cause a lot of harm. Then this adenovirus is like a Trojan horse. It will carry that gene that actually goes into the cell. That goes into the cell as a DNA, then the cell will make mRNA, and then mRNA will make a protein. And by the way, we have many of those, and they are really safe too. But you know, I've heard from a lot of people like, is this gonna get into my DNA? The viral sector vaccines, yes. The mRNA, they will not. There is more than 280 vaccines in the works. We are gonna need all of them, guys. We really are. Therefore, and many of them, you know, some of them is the mRNA, some DNA, some the protein, some inactivated virus. Some people wants to wait until the inactivated virus, like the other vaccines, which most probably they will be here in a month or two. You know, clinical trials are very organized. There is phase 1, phase 2, 3, and then 4. Phase 1 trying to find the dose, phase 2 trying to make sure it's effective, phase 3 to prove it's effective. And by the way, all these vaccines underwent all these phases, but those phases were fast. Why they were fast? Because we have so many of patients, unfortunately, with COVID-19. When we open a study in a cancer, you know, we want 5,000 patients. It could take us 5 to 10 years. Because, you know, I mean, you know, some of the cancers are common, but even those take us years. While with COVID-19, I mean, you had to go to Italy or Brazil, and you will have, you know, 200,000 people who are willing to participate in a week. That's why it was easy to accrue patients. But this is all the countries, the whole world is really involved in creating these vaccines. These are the table of the main ones, and there is stars about the mRNA one. On the top is the Moderna, and the second is Pfizer. By the way, guys, these are not exactly the same, but they are very close. This is based on the BioNTech technology. This is the company I told you, it's a German company. These two Turkish scientists who invented this, and they work with Pfizer. Therefore, the Moderna vaccine and Pfizer based exactly on the same method, but it's a different message of the virus. Therefore, it's same technology, but it's a little bit different. But that's why the efficacy of both of them, as you will see, is very, very common. This is the first vaccine. The company did a lot of studies to find the dose. There were two of them actually here in the table on the right, 162B1, 162B2, and they realized that the 162B2 is a better vaccine on phase 1, and that's what the FDA is looking at. And it's a modified RNA, MOD RNA. The two injections, one we call it a prime, to prime the immune system, and the second one to boost. In the Pfizer, the duration between the two injections is 21 days. This is the phase 1. This is the original 195 patients who were tested different doses, 10 micrograms, 20, 30, and they realized actually the dose is 30 for all age groups. In this phase 1, they included people only 18 and older. And as you can see, this is the side effects. Guys, they are not really measured. Local profile, it means that the injection in the skin, pain around 40–50%. Probably most of these are men because they have a lot of pain, not like women. Women are tough. Redness, swelling, pain at the injection site. These are all what we call grade 1 and 2, very mild. Those two, there is a little bit more inflammation. And you know, guys, what it means? It means that your immune system is working. It's reacting against it. This is fever, fatigue. Headache is a little bit around 15%, grade 3. Muscle aches. I don't know why headache was more in the Moderna vaccine. Actually, headache was like 23% in the Moderna, and it was really bad for like 1 day. But not for the Pfizer, not for this one that the FDA is looking at. It's around 7–8% and a little bit of fatigue. By the way, these side effects, they were solicited from the patient. You know, with the clinical trials, we tell the patient, Mrs. Smith, how do you feel? I feel great. You know, these patients go down to the nurses and they tell them all the side effects. No, actually, they ask the people, tell me about your fever. Did you take your temperature? How many times? How much fatigue? Are you still being able to do what you did yesterday or the week before or the week before? The headache, tell me, did you really have any headache? Therefore, these are not things patients volunteer, because we know patients don't like to volunteer and complain. They really don't. But the patients were asked in detail about them. Therefore, these are real numbers. The same thing, this is after in people who are 65 to 85, it was really the same safety. If anything, it's actually a little bit less. Now, this is really important. I don't expect you to know this word by word. They compared this vaccine, they compared this day 28 in a square below. This is the second, this is 7 days after the second dose. Therefore, you give the vaccine day 0 and 21. After 7 days after the second dose, look how the neutralizing antibody titer so high, 157, 363, 268. If you look at the far right, the one in green, these are people who were infected and their titer was 94. Therefore, after the vaccine, you have higher titer, higher amount and concentration of neutralizing antibody compared to people who were infected. Therefore, it's more effective, the vaccine. This is really important because we are going to recommend the vaccine even people who are infected. In the older people, 65 to 85, the ones like in the middle, the response was a little bit less because, you know, immune system, as we grow a little bit older, it becomes less, but still it's 84, 140. We are going to use the 30 micrograms. Even in older people, the titer was 149 compared to 94. Therefore, at the 30 microgram dose, whether 18 to 55 of age or 65 to 85, you will have a better response after the vaccine than even if you are infected. And usually it's 7 days. After the first shot, you are 50% immune. After the second, 1 week after the second shot, you are 95% immune. This is really interesting. When you are infected, with the COVID-19, you do not have cell-mediated immunity. You remember what I told you about the humoral, the antibody with the cell? You do not have cell. If you look at the graph on the left, I underlined in red HCS. HCS means human convalescent sera. Look at the figure, there is nothing. While after the vaccine, there is cell-mediated immunity. Therefore, this vaccine did two things. It induced antibody higher than those who were infected, and it induces, in addition to antibody, cell-mediated immunity that people who are infected did not have. Neutralizing antibody responses 7 days after the second dose are robust and exceed those observed in a panel of a human convalescent sera, 38 patients, and there is a strong T-cell response. Therefore, this has been proven beyond the shadow of a doubt. Now, you want to ask me, how long do these antibodies last? We know they last at least 112 days. Why 112? Because that's all what we tested in the Moderna study. I have no doubt they last longer. But at least this is the science. Now, do they last longer than that? I think we do, but we have not done studies beyond that. This is the data that's going to be presented to the FDA now, has been presented, and this is the results. 2 doses, 21 days apart, efficacy 95%, 43,000 plus patients participated. It started in July, it ended November 13. Look at the table below. The vaccine group, the confirmed number of COVID infection in the vaccine group of 20,000 patients, 8 patients. In the placebo, 162 patients. And severe cases, out of the 8 in the vaccine, there was only 1 severe case, while in the placebo, 9 of the 162 were severe. Therefore, this vaccine does not only decrease the number of infections markedly, but those infections tend not to be severe. But this is really important to know. I mean, this data, and by the way, the publication today in the New England, these are exactly the same result. That's how the 95%. It is 8 compared to 160. You divide the numbers, you get 94.5%. Therefore, again, there is no magic for the numbers. Nobody is making this up. This number was not created in another country. This is science. These are the numbers. The FDA is not looking at just these numbers. They are looking at individual patients. They are going back to these case report forms we fill for every patient. Some of you on studies, when you come, the research nurse comes in and asks you about everything. They are actually going back to what we call source document. The company has nothing to do with this data. The data safety monitoring company analyzed this data and gave it to the company after they did. This is the Moderna vaccine. Do these numbers look the same, guys, like the previous one? Really? The only difference here is that the 2 doses were 28 days apart. Why 21, not 28? I don't know. But I think either one is okay. The 30,000 patients, therefore, there you have 40 something, and now we have 30. Therefore, these 2 studies alone, we have 70,000 patients, and the efficacy is 94%. Out of the patient who took vaccine, 11 patients had the COVID, while the placebo 185. And look how many severe cases in the vaccine, 0, while in the placebo 30. Therefore, again, I mean, these are 2 completely independent studies. The Moderna study was done all in the United States. The Pfizer study, 2/3 of the patients from this country and 1/3 from everywhere else. The Pfizer study, 10% were African American, 4% were Asians. I wish there more and more minority, but at least we have some. The Pfizer study, they studied the efficacy of the vaccine across age, race, demographic, morbidities, obesity, and the efficacy was the same. Now, this is really important. They did not include patients who are immunosuppressed or receiving immune suppressive agents. I just looked at the protocol. They really did not. Therefore, they included some patients with cancer who had cancer in the past, but nobody was undergoing a treatment. Therefore, we have really no data, but I will tell you what I think. Now, these are the 2 vaccines. As you know, the Pfizer, it needs to be shipped at -70 degrees centigrade. For God's sake, if Coca-Cola can get cold frozen Cokes to the desert of Africa, we can get a vaccine somewhere. I mean, they make a big deal out of this. It's just a $10,000 refrigerator for a hospital to buy. I don't think it's a big deal. Actually, the big deal here, if Pfizer, you see how the devil is in the details. If you look at the packaging under Pfizer, it's a minimum of 195 vials or 975 doses. Therefore, it's a suitcase. Therefore, if you want to take this to a nursing home of 50 people, it's not going to work. Well, you are going to throw away 900 doses? Because once you open the suitcase, sort of, that's it, you have to use it. But that's why, you know, in Great Britain, they actually went back. Nobody really thought about it. It's like, okay, we don't have nursing home of 1,000 patients. But that's the only thing. But hopefully the Moderna, which the FDA is gonna look at next week. But again, this is really, and it has to be diluted on site. And I don't think it's a big deal. These two vaccines really are the same. It seems the fatigue is a little bit more with the Moderna. I don't know why. Maybe the dose. Look, they used 100 micrograms, but again, it's not the same dose. Please, you cannot compare the two studies together. We tell you in cancer, don't compare two phase 3 trials. Although, you know what, I'm doing this here. I shouldn't, but I'm doing it. They are not equivalent micrograms. Don't tell me, oh my God, the Moderna is 3 times. But you know what? Some people say maybe that's the reason why you have more fatigue. But other than the fatigue, now I know you all heard about these 2 people in United Kingdom who had allergic reaction. But I hope you heard that these 2 people have had allergic reaction to drugs all their lives, to the extent that they carry EpiPen with them. I mean, if you are carrying EpiPen with you, you are susceptible to have severe allergic reactions. And unfortunately, they did not disclose that to the people who gave them the vaccine. Therefore, if you have to carry an EpiPen because you're allergic to something, then maybe the Pfizer vaccine is not for you. We don't really know what they were allergic to. Is it the vaccine itself or the carrier? You know, guys, we need to get this herd population immunity. We need a lot of people to be vaccinated. I know you are hearing 75%. I think 15% of us are immune from infection. I really think it's another 50, 60. I really do, because the vaccine is so effective. The more effective the vaccine is, the less people you need to vaccinate to induce herd or population immunity. Now, the last survey I looked at, 61% of people will accept the vaccine. I really think with time, more and more will accept it. This is the prioritizing. The population one is the frontline healthcare. You know what? I don't know. This is what they decided on. I really believe a lot of people qualify for this. I mean, what about teachers? What about, you know, airline attendants? What about but the frontline healthcare, emergency service workers, older patients? I mean, just 1A by itself is 20 million Americans. We have 2.9 million doses to go on Monday. We are going to be able to vaccinate 1.5 million because each one needs 2 doses. Therefore, we are going to have enough on next week for 1.5 million. We have 20 million healthcare workers. Or just do the math. Now, what about cancer patients? You know I told you the study did not include immune compromised patients. I quoted this, actually, Dr. Fauci, and I really agree with his statement last weekend. He said it's clear that if you are on immunosuppressive agents, history tells us that you are not going to have as robust a response as if you had an intact immune system that was not being compromised, but some degree of immunity is better than no degree of immunity. So for me, it would be recommended that these patients do get vaccinated now. Please, many of you are gonna ask me, you know, people who are on some mild chemotherapy like paclitaxel is not really immune compromised. Now, people who are undergoing bone marrow transplant, yes, they are. That's why we immunize them after the bone marrow transplant, because they lose all their immunity to measles and chickenpox. We give it back to them. But you know, not every cancer patient is immune compromised. And not even every cancer patient on chemotherapy is. Don't we tell you to take the flu vaccine? You take it. I mean, there are very few of you, I hope your doctors tell you not to take the flu vaccine. But the problem is, I don't know if the advisory board today or tomorrow, they are gonna recommend cancer patients to take it. I really think they should, with a good discussion with your doctor, because I think it will be a mistake not to, but there is really no data. But you know, guys, in cancer, you and your doctor sit every day, and half of the time we have no data, we make a educated gut feeling. Therefore, you are not foreign to making decisions. Now, I don't think pregnant women and lactating women should receive the vaccine. I really don't. There is so much in there. Although we give vaccines to women who are pregnant, like whooping cough, we give a vaccine to them between 27 and 36 weeks. But I think we need to know more about this in pregnant women and lactating. But again, the advisory board is going to look at, or is looking at it. I don't even know if they voted. But I think the one group of patients, I would not vaccinate pregnant women. What about if you had the COVID? Yes, I think you should be, because a lot of the people who have COVID, they don't have a good immune response. Now, if somebody has a COVID last month, would I be the first one in line to take it? Probably I wouldn't, not because I'm scared. Probably I will let others take it first, because I will have at least immunity for a few months. But yes, whether you had the COVID or not, I think people should be vaccinated. I think that's all what I have, and I want to leave it now for you to have some questions.
Okay, if you have questions, you can put in the chat. I do have one question that was emailed. It says, my question is, what are the effects, if any, after you're vaccinated, which I think you answered, but the other part of that question was, is there any type of cancer that should not receive the vaccine? This was an email.
Really very good question, very good. First, I really would tell you that this vaccine, I honestly believe we're using a little bit more of this. The dose is a good dose. It's 30 micrograms with the Pfizer. That's why the side effects a little bit more than the flu, but they are really like the flu side effects. I think the Moderna is a little bit more in terms of the fatigue and the headache. I mean, some people are recommending, if you receive the Moderna, maybe the day after the vaccine, stay at home and drink coffee. It seems it responds to coffee. Therefore, a little bit of fever. But the one thing I want to emphasize, you did not get COVID. Yeah, because some people don't take the flu vaccine because they are worried they will have the flu. You know, you hear it. You are not going to have COVID. Therefore, and honestly, I believe some of these patients on the study, they went to their doctors because they thought they had COVID, they had fever, muscle aches. But these are non-specific symptoms. I do not recommend you to take a lot of acid Tylenol and Advil because it tends to suppress the immune system. Therefore, if you can hold on just drinking some tea and, you know, probably I'm a chicken, probably I will take a couple of Tylenols, but I don't recommend you to take a lot because we don't know what it does to the immune response. Now, in terms of cancers, I think the only procedure I definitely do not recommend is bone marrow transplant. Not because it's not safe, it's because if you take the vaccine now and you have a bone marrow transplant in 2 weeks, you are gonna lose the immunity. Therefore, it's really like you didn't take it. Therefore, especially allogeneic bone marrow transplant is in the course of your treatment, the vaccine should be delayed because it's not gonna work. But other than that, I really think the majority of cancer patients can take the vaccine. But again, there is really no data here. But we tell them to take the shingles vaccine. We tell them to take the flu vaccine. And I think this is the same thing. But again, just discuss it now. How do you time it with chemo? You know, I tell people take it like in the middle of the cycle. Again, you know, what is immune suppressed? Now, we have some people who are inherited immune suppressive conditions. They shouldn't take the vaccine. Like there are some severe combined immune deficiency, IgA, they should not take it, but this is very rare. These are inherited genetic. Therefore, there is really no cancer, hematologic malignancy, lymphoma, leukemia, myeloma, because they receive very intensive chemo. They really should discuss the vaccine with their doctor. Solid tumors like lung cancer, breast cancer, it should not really be an issue. But again, I recommend you to discuss it with your doctor.